Expert witnesses, they're a major power source for points in a mock trial because they allow you to show off your skills. One thing you need to remember to do if you're an attorney or if you're an expert is to make sure that this expert gets acknowledged as an expert. If you have an expert, you're going to have to do some extra things during the foundation that you don't have to do during a regular witness examination. And that's to lay the foundation that they have this expert qualification. It's going to be a lot more questions during the foundation than it will be during a regular witness. And I've got the stuff laid out for you in your quick reference cheat sheet. So just have that on hand and make sure you check all the boxes off when you're laying the foundation. When your opponent is introducing an expert, be ready to object to any little thing they forget to do. For example, you have to show that the person is qualified by knowledge, skill, experience, or education. Generally, that's a no brainer. They're an expert because they're an expert, so hopefully you can show that they have some type of knowledge, skill, experience, or education. But if they forget to do that, then object. The other things you have to do, or you have to show that, hey, this person can assist the trier of fact to understand an issue. Their testimony is based on sufficient facts or data. They're using reliable principles and methods in their research, and they're applying these principles and methods in a reliable way. All of these things are things that you can either specifically state in your testimony if you're the expert witness, or if you're an attorney, you can specifically ask those, use those same phrases in your questions when you're asking the witness questions, and that'll make it really obvious for the judge if you're using that same terminology. You don't have to use the same terminology that I listed here as the requirements of the rule, but it kind of makes it easier, doesn't it? Doesn't that make sense to you that if you use the same terms, then it'll make it real obvious to the judge? Now, you need to avoid coming off corny because it's going to seem kind of canned if you're using these exact phrases one after the other, step by step. But hey, if that's what works for you, then that's what works, because the most important thing to do is just to show that this person is qualified as an expert, because the last question you're going to ask during an expert witness foundation is, Your Honor, I would like to, or I move for the court to acknowledge this witness as an expert. Or can the court please acknowledge this witness as an expert? Or however you want to phrase it, you're basically asking the court to acknowledge a witness as an expert. And you probably want to add the phrase in blank field. For example, in windshield penetrability, or in DNA analysis, or in forensic analysis, in entomology. If someone is an entomologist, you can just add in their field, whatever it is. They could be an expert in narcotics, an expert in um, analyzing dead bodies, whatever their expertise is, you should add that in there. And hopefully the judge acknowledges that expert as an expert witness. If they don't, then you'll have to go back to your list and think, well, what did I forget to do? And when your opponent asks to acknowledge an expert as an expert, be ready to explain where they messed up. Which one of those requirements did they fail to do? Because usually, when the opponent asks to acknowledge someone as an expert, the judge will look at you and they'll say, do you have any objections? And that's your chance. I mean, you don't even have to remember to object sometimes if the judge asks you for an objection. But if you're just stumped, then they're going to slip their expert in on you and you didn't even use your one chance to keep the expert out. The other thing you want to listen for is if your opponent forgets to acknowledge an expert as an expert, and then the expert starts talking and theorizing about all these complex scientific principles, you need to object and say, Your Honor, whoa, 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 I object. This witness has not been acknowledged as an expert witness yet they're talking about expert topics. This is not lay witness testimony that I'm hearing. I'm hearing expert witness testimony, and they're not qualified as an expert witness. Now, again, I would phrase that in a more polite way, but that's kind of the paraphrase of what you're getting across. Another thing you can look for is if an expert has been qualified as, say, an entomologist, and they're an expert in how bugs work and what their breeding patterns are and how much wood a termite can eat. And then they start talking about why someone died. Well, this girl died from the fall from the arch because the termites ate up the arch. This person hasn't been qualified as an expert in medicine. They don't know why the girl died when she fell from the arch. They only know that termites can eat a lot of wood. So you need to object and say, Your Honor, this expert has not been qualified in medical injuries. They've only been qualified in how bugs eat wood. So you need to make sure the expert stays within their expertise.